All night until morning I was treated with cognac, which I bought to add to coffee in the mornings. I drank without Zakusavir. I fell asleep only when it began to dawn. And I was very sorry that I live alone, that I don't meet with anyone and don't keep even a cat at home. Oh, how it shook me. I barely recovered from this horror. For a long time I slept with a nightlight and flinched at every rustle. And a couple of weeks later, this red-haired crowler comes to my office. She gives me back my bag with shoes and says, "Thank you for the keys, but next time you need to warn in advance when you want to come in. You never know what people are busy with." She looks at my pale, drawn face, smiles so sweetly, and leaves calmly. What was that? Mother, what? After that, this girl lived in the apartment for another 6 months and moved out. I didn't observe any more oddities behind her. Yes, and I didn't strive. I couldn't be lured to this lady with a kalachom and couldn't be forced to go under a machine gun. The contract was terminated in the office. I didn't even go to check if everything was in place in the apartment and in order. I got off, and that's good. But what is strange, after this girl, a young family with a child rented the apartment. And they still live there. Moreover, they bought this apartment and were very happy. And this is after the tenants changed in it almost every 2 months. So the question arises, what did this strange girl eat? And who or what is she? What was it all about? Although I try not to think about it, it's calmer that way. I just accept it now as a given. The strange exists. And I try not to remember. Just accept it as a fact, learn to live with it and forget it. Just like there are lions in Africa, so ghosts are also somewhere. I pray for one thing only, that this somewhere is far away from me, but there are exceptions. In my list of defective housing, there were a couple of wonderful apartments, no matter how you look at them, in a good area, bright, spacious, with expensive renovations. Cheap, which is again nice, live and enjoy. But for some reason, people didn't stay in them. The owners changed more often than in a dilapidated building with an old alcoholic woman next door. This state of affairs sometimes stumped me, but I never really thought about it. They don't live there, and they don't, so be it. The apartments that were not rented out despite their quality, I had 2 at the time. One was a 2-room apartment in a new building in a residential area and a 3-room chic apartment in the very centre of the city. Old building, but with a very good renovation and a glazed loggia. My friends and acquaintances found 1,001 mystical reasons for such a strange turnover. And my colleagues sometimes whispered about all sorts of things, scary things. I, as I thought then, let all this nonsense pass me by and didn't believe in anything like that. But one terrible, frightening case made me think hard and rethink my views on the unknown. I had a client, a little strange, red-haired, thin, eyes like 2 searchlights, big and green. She looked about 18 years old according to her passport, about 30. I saw it when we were drawing up the contract. She was terribly picky, but somehow abnormally picky. Oh, how many options we went through with her. Moreover, she didn't set any specific requirements. Everything was very simple, closer to the centre, transport nearby, and a normal renovation. She didn't limit me in the price. It would seem that almost any apartment from my database would suit her, but nothing like that. Whatever we look at, she doesn't like anything. "It's not it," she says. I ask, "What do you need?" "You tell me what you want from an apartment. I'll find one for you." "I don't know, but I'll see that this is it, mine, and I'll say, well, tell me what you didn't like. We'll exclude similar options." "Everything is fine. It's just not mine. Let's look further." That's the whole conversation. So we were looking for that with her. She looked at everything, chose. Yes, and somehow she looked very strange. She walks around the apartment, looks around, just like they launched a cat into a new home, so wary. Except that she doesn't sniff. How do normal people look at apartments? They'll turn the taps, touch the batteries. They'll check if the plaster is crumbling somewhere, if there are any stains on the ceiling. Such things. Ordinary ones. Tenants check. Is it possible to live or not? And not sitting in the closets. And this strange woman will find a closet in the apartment, go in, lock herself from the inside, stand for 5 minutes. She comes out. Her face is dissatisfied. Everything is clear. You need to look for a new apartment again. She didn't like it, which means… When she did this for the first time, I almost twisted my finger at my temple. Then I spat. Who knows what kind of quirks people have? Oh, I wish I had kicked her out. I wish I had considered her crazy. She annoyed me, of course, but what to do? Work is work. And the season was quiet. Few clients, lots of time. And my salary depends on the contracts. In general, we got to my non-rented 3-room apartment with her. And this apartment is my cousin's. She lives in another city, so as a relative and friend, I always concluded a lease agreement on her behalf. In general, we arrived, took off our shoes, and entered. This girl didn't even spend 10 minutes there. She didn't even climb into her favorite closet. She flies up to me, I take it, she says. This is exactly what I need. I like everything very much. And her eyes are burning, and her smile is all 32 teeth, even a little creepy. Well, I think, thank God, maybe at least this one will live here, since she has such love for this apartment at first sight. We immediately concluded an agreement, settled the bill. I kept 2 pairs of keys from this apartment. I immediately gave one to her and left the second at home. I didn't think to grab it. I didn't think that it would turn out so well and it would be possible to rent out the apartment. Fool, in a word. I still curse myself. We agreed with this red-haired woman that I would bring her the keys in a couple of days. 4 days later, on Wednesday, I had business not far from that place. Well, I decided, why drive back and forth across the city? I'll be free and I'll drop the keys. I call this day in the morning. The phone is turned off. Well, I think maybe she's sleeping. I'll take the keys with me and call. I dealt with the matters closer to evening, around 7 o'clock. And it was winter. It got dark early. Not pitch dark, of course, but such dense twilight. I call my cell phone. It's still turned off. And I don't want to go there again specifically. I'm lazy and gasoline is expensive again. Then a plan was born in my head, rare in its idiocy. And I think, let me bring the keys and leave them with a note. The door there closes with a slam. I'll go in, put the keys on the table and leave. I arrived, called my cell phone again. It was still turned off. The windows in the apartment are dark, which means no one is home. I went upstairs. I ring the doorbell, just in case. Silence. It doesn't work. I think maybe the power is off. Although it's strange, the lights in the entrance are on. I knocked for safety. 0 reaction. Exactly no one is home. I open the door with a key. I enter. I clicked the switch. It's as dark as it was. Indeed, there is no electricity. Well, I think everything is clear. I took off my shoes, went into the hall. This is the farthest and largest room in the apartment. I wouldn't have gone so far, but the owner left little furniture. There was only a table in the hall. I couldn't throw the keys with a note on the floor, could I? I wish I had thrown it. I went in, laid out the key, tore a piece of paper from the notebook. I stand with my back to the door, rummaging in my bag, looking for a pen. I hear some rustling and footsteps behind me. I turn around, thinking, maybe the owner has returned. But how the door slammed, I didn't seem to hear. Maybe she was sleeping on the couch in the bedroom. What else to do in the dark? And I'm so beautiful came without an invitation. I turned around and I saw, oh my God, what I saw. I still get goosebumps when I remember. Something stands in front of me, tall, almost up to the ceiling, with a twisted and turned neck, eyes like 2 black holes. The thing itself is pale to blue, thin, all the bones are visible, hunched over, naked. It stands and sways. People can't stand like that, like a snake. It stands, looks at me and smiles a terrible smile. In the twilight, everything was very well visible, down to every disgusting detail. My soul went to my heels. I want to scream, but my throat is constricted. Instead of a scream, some kind of wheeze comes out. I should run, but I'm as if rooted to the spot. I stand neither alive nor dead. I'm clutching my bag in my hands. And this thing seemed to get tired of looking at me. It stretched its flabby bluish hand towards me. That's when my nerves gave way. I fainted. Bam! And there's nothing there. I don't know how long I lay there. I woke up from a strange sound. It seems like someone is smacking their lips. That's how little children eat until they learn how to behave at the table. I became so terribly scared. I have never been so scared before, and I never, God willing, will be again. Am I being eaten, I think? Although I don't seem to be in pain, and no one is touching me, I'm just lying there. Finally, I gathered the courage, got up on my elbows. I thought, my monster, not a monster. Oh my God, there my red-haired client is sitting on her haunches, with her back to me and eating something. It seems like there's some kind of pile in front of her. She sits and chews. I was so relieved that there was no monster. Everything got mixed up in my head. It didn't even occur to me. Why is the girl eating in such a strange pose, and even in the dark? And what? And why didn't she pay any attention to me lying in the middle of the room? Then I was just glad that there was a familiar person nearby. I was happy too soon. I started to say something, and she turned around. I will never forget this. I will remember it until I am old, until I die. She turned around, and her eyes glow like a cat's in the dark, and under them, black circles. Her face stretched out, became pointed. The features became somehow strange, sharp. And the teeth! She didn't have such teeth, small, sharp, and so many. I looked closely at the pile next to her. And this is my monster. It lies crumpled like a rag. It twitches. And she is eating it. She swallows it halfway, half pulls it in like air. She devours it. She even chokes from greed. I screamed and, beside myself, flew out of the apartment. How I got up, how I ran, I don't remember. I left my bag there, shoes too. It's good that I didn't take off my clothes. The keys to the car in the apartment remained in my pocket. I have them in one bunch. I just rushed home. I still wonder how I didn't get into any accident. I was insane. At my home, I turned on all the lights and turned on the TV. All night until morning, I was treated with cognac, which I bought to add to coffee in the mornings. I drank without Zakusavir. I fell asleep only when it began to dawn. And I was very sorry that I live alone, that I don't meet with anyone and don't keep even a cat at home. Oh, how it shook me. I barely recovered from this horror. For a long time, I slept with a nightlight and flinched at every rustle. And a couple of weeks later, this red-haired crawler comes to my office. She gives me back my bag with shoes and says, "Thank you for the keys, but next time you need to warn in advance when you want to come in. You never know what people are busy with." She looks at my pale, drawn face, smiles so sweetly and leaves calmly. What was that? Mother, what? After that, this girl lived in the apartment for another 6 months and moved out. I didn't observe any more oddities behind her. Yes, and I didn't strive. I couldn't be lured to this lady with a kalachom and couldn't be forced to go under a machine gun. The contract was terminated in the office. I didn't even go to check if everything was in place in the apartment and in order. I got off and that's good. But what is strange, after this girl, a young family with a child rented the apartment, and they still live there. Moreover, they bought this apartment and were very happy, and this is after the tenants changed in it almost every 2 months. So the question arises, what did this strange girl eat? And who or what is she? What was it all about? Although I try not to think about it. It's calmer that way. I just accept it now as a given. The strange exists. And I try not to remember. Just accept it as a fact, learn to live with it and forget it. Just like there are lions in Africa? So ghosts are also somewhere. I pray for one thing only, that this somewhere is far away from me.